Those close to the McCanns are very concerned by the increasing number of reports in the Portuguese press that seem to come from leaks in the Portuguese police and place them at the centre of this investigation.
Now, just have a look at this headline. Madeleine, DNA is found. Arrest expected in 48 hours.
Kate and Jerry McCann have both been today declared arguidos.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Did you know that in March 2019, prior to the release of The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann on Netflix, various British media, including The Sun, The Daily Mail, and Cambridge Live, among others, reported that the 8-part series cost £20 million to make. At the time, the search for Madeleine had cost just over £11 million, barely half that amount. If that statistic isn't crazy enough, you may have heard about calls to test samples of Madeleine's DNA. DNA tests can cost as little as £60. Why? Well, to determine whether Madeleine's DNA was found in the rented Renault Scenic or not.
Meanwhile, the Portuguese asked Grime and his team to search cars that had been used, both by the McCanns and their friends.
Now, the circled area in these images denote dog alert sites where DNA samples were taken from.
Sendo mostrar uma compatibilidade total.
Os vestígios do carro aproximavam-se do perfil da Madeleine.
In this episode, we want to deal with the samples recovered. So after the dogs did their work, samples were sent to a British lab. And what happened in those tests? What happened to those tests? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Bear in mind, I will be traveling to Luge for the anniversary on May 3rd this year, and I'll be sharing some of my insights on the ground during that trip. So if you don't want to miss that, you probably do want to subscribe. You can also contribute to this channel by hitting the thanks button. If you've never done that, well, now is your chance. And let's get started.
The sample recovered from the McCann's apartment will be analysed over several days by Britain's Forensic Science Service.
And look at these headlines that were playing in the British newspapers at the time. Brit Lab bombshell, car DNA is 100% Maddie's. Cops also tapped McCann's phones and email. But according to 9 News, Dr. John Lowe, the senior scientist at the FSS, that's Forensic Science Services, that's a lab in Britain, the lab responsible for solving the McCann DNA samples, stated in its final report that his team could not resolve the evidence because it was too challenging.
If it does prove to be blood, scientists will then extract DNA to see if there's a match to Madeleine.
According to 9 News, establishing accurate results was also complicated by the fact that Madeleine had a younger twin brother and sister. That's according to Dr. Lowe of the Forensic Science Service lab.
You're beginning to doubt the veracity of what you appear to have been told by the McCann side.
You may remember that surrounding this evidence from the rear of the rented vehicle were also rumors about a neighbor seeing the vehicle with all doors as well as the rear hatch open overnight, as if it was being aired. That's something, incidentally, that also happened with Casey Anthony's vehicle, a white Pontiac Sunfire, and a vehicle that was also thought to have transported the human remains of a small child. According to 9 News, one of the men told police he had later removed carpet from the boot compartment section and tried to scrub it clean. In episode 9 of Maddie, Mr. Amaral detailed how a woman had approached Portuguese police to tell them how she had observed the boot being left open for a period of days. Nobody denied that the car boot had been always open. They said it was because of the smell of garbage, Mr. Amaral said. They said it was domestic garbage that was transported in the car boot. Now, according to Amaral's book, The Truth of the Lie, Michael Wright, by the way, his wife Anne-Marie is Kate McCann's cousin. He later affirmed that they used the car to transport garbage and that once some blood from beef or fish, some kind of groceries, spilled in the luggage area, thereby justifying the strange odor. One of Kate's aunts said that the car had unpleasant smells that she assumed came from the baby's diapers. Now, as far as I know, the testing didn't show animal blood. It was definitely blood from a human being. And this is an excerpt from Michael Wright's statement to the Polizia Giudiziaria. I noted some disagreeable smells on a number of occasions, which I judged to have come from the twins' nappies. Discarded nappies were collected in rubbish bags and held until thrown in the rubbish bins, thereby provoking smell. I have no knowledge of anything spilling from any article, nor of any cleaning of the car after such a hypothetical spill. So now it's gone from groceries to excrement. Can I ask a question? Does this £20 million Netflix series on Madeleine say anything in episode 4 or anywhere ever about the McCanns airing their vehicle day and night? Because this aspect formed quite an important part of Amaral's narrative, and I do think that that person who came forward, who Amaral describes as I think a juror, someone with some kind of legal background, I think this happened quite late in the day. I think even after Amaral was kicked off the case. But according to 9 News, Dr. Perlin has stated the raft of DNA samples deemed inconclusive by the FSS, that's the Forensic Science Service, the British lab that tested the DNA, may hold significant case-changing information. Dr. Perlin also said the older FSS testing methods in 2007 were subjective and open to human bias. Does that sound familiar? In the Ramsey case, DNA is cited as a clue to breaking the case, the vital clue needed to break the case. In the McCann case, the failure and apparent disinterest to test DNA is perhaps the reason the dog alerts were never taken seriously, the reason that dog alerts were never actually confirmed, because they were never definitively proved. A conclusive DNA test could change that and solve the mystery of what happened to Madeleine once and for all. It's interesting that literally no one is calling for these crucial tests to take place. Meanwhile, this is what a world-leading expert on DNA testing has to say about this. Let's go back to Dr. Perlin. If a lab can produce informative data, even if it is complex and mixed, but they can't interpret it, then you can have a tremendous injustice of guilty people not being convicted and of innocent people staying in prison. What is needed is an objective and accurate interpretation that can scientifically resolve the DNA, Perlin said. According to the same article, and I'll put a link to it in the description, Perlin is one of the leading DNA scientists in the world, and he has said that it would take him just 1 week to crack these once indecipherable samples, including the swabs taken from the boot compartment of the McCann's hire car. And so in terms of Dr. Perlin's assessment, he says it was possible Madeleine's DNA was present in the McCann hire car, potentially opening up a line of the police inquiry that was seemingly shut down by the 2007 inconclusive DNA results. What was interesting about the report from the FSS 10 years ago is they're trying to interpret the McCann DNA data. That's according to Dr. Perlin.
Essentially, the Portuguese police's case against the McCanns involved the following: that she had died by accident on the night of May the 3rd, that the supposed checks on the children had been concocted, that they had hidden their daughter's body, and that her body had thus subsequently been transported in the rental car.
Now have a look at the headline I showed you in the beginning, but this time look carefully at the fine print. It says, Madeleine, DNA is found, arrest expected in 48 hours. But look at that fine print. The DNA of a potential suspect in the Madeleine McCann case has been found by British scientists. It was discovered among fragments of forensic evidence taken from Kate and Jerry McCann's holiday flat and sent to the UK for analysis. Last night, sources said Portuguese police were now expected to make new arrests within 48 hours. The DNA is said to have been found in an area of the Praia da Luz flat where the individual should not have been. Now, if you think about it, that is totally false, the story. I think they were speculating who this DNA belonged to, thought it was an intruder. But wasn't this Madeleine's potential DNA that the police were investigating? Wasn't this Madeleine's potential DNA that the FSS lab, that they were trying to test and identify this DNA? And the media was speculating about this wrongly. And yet in the Netflix series, this headline is presented alongside the arrests of the McCanns and really taken out of context, because it's not about the DNA of a suspect, it's about Madeleine's potential DNA. And certainly when these tests were taking place, kind of while they were happening, the parents rose to the highest level as suspects. And I think the fact that the tests ultimately ended up being inconclusive was the reason why it never led to an arrest in this case. Does that make sense? If solving the McCann case really is as simple as a DNA test, one can see how the failure to do so represents not a lack of resources or even a lack of evidence, but perhaps a lack of political will. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.